Welcome to a new recap. The creeper is a flying monster that feeds on human flesh every 23 years in the spring. He appears and begins eating people for 23 days, and on the 23rd day of spring, he sneaks onto a bus filled with a high school basketball team and their fans. On the 22nd day of spring, a farmer named Jack Taggart Sr. looked upset because the post driver he used to hammer stakes into the ground was acting up again. He thought his sons had been messing with it. Jack Sr. yelled at them before heading back into the house. His older son, Jack Jr., was annoyed but focused on fixing the truck, while the younger son, Billy, was busy setting up scarecrows in the field. Suddenly, their dog Max started barking at Billy. Jack Jr. laughed, thinking the dog was just barking at his little brother. But Billy noticed that one scarecrow looked different from the others. He carefully approached it, then suddenly ran away screaming in terror when he saw its monstrous legs move. Jack Sr. and Jack Jr. heard Billy's screams and rushed to save him, but they couldn't. The creeper appeared, spread his wings, and snatched Billy away while he screamed. All they could do was stand there heartbroken, watching the youngest member of their family get taken from them. The next day, a bus carrying a high school basketball team and their supporters was driving through Kessler County on its way back to school. The players were chanting and celebrating after winning the state championship, but the celebration stopped when a tire suddenly blew out. Betty, the bus driver, had to slam on the brakes to avoid a serious accident. She stepped out to check what had damaged the tire, followed by coaches Charlie and Dwayne. She was shocked to find a throwing star made of bones. When she grabbed it, she cut her hand on its sharp edges. Coach Charlie picked it up more carefully to avoid the blades, examined it, and then dropped it in shock when he noticed human teeth embedded in it. Johnny Young complained that Betty wasn't doing anything to fix the tire, but his teammate DeAndre told him they needed a mechanic to replace a bus tire, and there wasn't one anywhere nearby. Andy Buck sat in the driver's seat while everyone fell silent, listening to the radio. The news reported horrific discoveries in Poho County. The body count at a burned-down old church had risen to over 300. Investigators found bodies sewn together, covering the church's floors, walls, and ceiling. Stranger details emerged. Some of the bodies had wooden teeth, suggesting they were more than 200 years old. Even more disturbing, the coroner confirmed that not a single body was complete, each one was missing a limb, multiple limbs, or internal organs. The students sat in total silence, shaken by what they were hearing, until Betty turned off the radio to call for help. Coach Dwayne felt something was wrong about the bone weapon, but Coach Charlie brushed off his concerns and told him to toss it away. Meanwhile, back at the farm, Jack Jr. and Max searched the spot where Billy had been taken and found a strange dagger. They rushed home to show it to Jack Sr. When he tested it, they were stunned by its strength and sharpness. It drove straight into the wall. Carved into the blade was an image of the creeper hunting a frightened boy in a cornfield, mirroring exactly how Billy had been taken. Back at the bus, Betty kept trying to reach someone on the radio, and the coaches attempted to call for help, but there was no signal. Some of the players climbed on top of the bus to relax in the sun, while others wandered off to relieve themselves. Jake Spencer told Izzy Bowen about a rumor spreading around school, that Izzy's injuries came from getting caught trying to sneak into a gay bar and ending up in a fight. Betty informed the coaches that 5 tires were still usable, meaning they could at least drive slowly instead of staying stranded in the middle of nowhere. Coach Charlie called everyone back, scolding the cheerleaders for smoking. The guys who had wandered off returned to the bus, leaving Campbell Ward alone. Campbell got startled when he felt something fly over him, but when he looked up, he saw nothing. A second shadow passed overhead, and panic set in. As he rushed back, a flock of birds flew past him, making him scream in fear. He ran to the bus embarrassed while some teammates laughed at him. Meanwhile, the Taggart family prepared to hunt down the creeper and rescue Billy. Jack Jr. worked on upgrading their truck to make it strong enough to fight the creature, while Jack Sr. crafted weapons. Night fell, and the bus still hadn't moved from the empty road. Most of the students had fallen asleep. Rhonda Truick tried to calm her boyfriend, Scott Braddock, who was still upset despite winning the state championship. Scott vented about Coach Charlie, saying he only let him play 12 minutes compared to his teammates. He felt the coach hadn't given him the same opportunity as the black players because of his skin color, which deeply bothered him, especially since they would have lost without him. Scott noticed DeAndre staring at him with clear disgust, obviously having overheard him, and sharply told him to look away. Maxie Hayes was asleep when she had a nightmare. In her dream, she woke up on the bus and saw Derry Jenner and Billy Taggart warning her and pointing at something. She looked and saw a man dressed in black running fast, pulling something out and throwing it at the tire. Maxie suddenly woke up when another tire blew out. After losing the second tire and having no signal to call for help, Betty said in frustration that they needed to light the flares and get everyone off the bus. Coach Charlie told Coach Dwayne to clear the bus while he helped Betty with the flare gun. Coach Charlie felt relieved when he saw a car approaching and stepped out to ask the driver for help. Since the rear tires were blown, they wouldn't be able to move the bus again. The only thing the other driver could really do was report to Highway Patrol that a school bus full of students was stranded on the road. The driver left, Charlie lit the flares, and Betty inspected the damaged tire. While checking it, she showed Dwayne another throwing star that had hit the tire. This one was different from the first one with teeth embedded in it. This one had a strange symbol carved into the center. Maxie tried to get a closer look, but Dwayne told her to stay away from the road while Charlie placed the burning flares down the middle of it. Betty suddenly told Dwayne to get everyone back on the bus, which confused him since she was the one who had insisted they all get off in the first place. But she had a bad feeling, like something wasn't right, and wanted everyone safe inside just in case. While she was talking, the creeper swooped down, grabbed Coach Charlie, and flew off with him. Everyone heard his screams and turned, but there was nothing there, just a flare falling to the ground. The students asked where he went, but Dwayne ordered them back inside and told them to lock the doors. Andy tried using the bus radio to call for help while Dwayne searched for Charlie and Betty kept setting up flares. Everything happened so fast, but Andy and Jake saw Betty get lifted into the air. Dwayne rushed back to the bus and demanded to know exactly what they saw, but neither of them could clearly describe what took her. He told them to sit tight and turn to look for her, but then noticed Scott still standing and ordered him to sit down. An argument broke out between Scott and Dwayne. Then suddenly the creeper grabbed Dwayne by the shoulders and started pulling him away. Scott and a few of the players tried to hold on to him, but the creeper was way too strong. In the end, all they could do was watch as it flew off with him. They ran back inside the bus, locked every door and window, and stared at Scott, whose face was covered in blood after he hit the ground. They asked what took Dwayne, and Scott said he wasn't completely sure, but he knew it had huge wings. An hour passed with no sign of the creeper. Andy kept trying to reach someone on the radio until Izzy found spears under the seats. Scott said those wouldn't do any good against the creeper, but Izzy argued that it was better to have something sharp than nothing at all. He also said they couldn't just sit there waiting because the creeper would pick them off one by one. Scott pointed out a fence in the field, saying that meant there had to be farmers somewhere down the road. They could make a run for it and ask for help, especially since the creeper hadn't shown up in over an hour. But Izzy shot back that just because it hadn't appeared didn't mean it wasn't hiding somewhere close, waiting for the right moment. A fight almost broke out on the bus when Maxie saw something that made her step back in fear and bump into Scott. He noticed her reaction and slowly moved toward the door, but they both backed away when they saw the creeper staring at them from outside. It pressed against the window, glaring at them in a terrifying way. Its mouth opened as it inhaled deeply, almost like it could smell their fear. Then it crawled to the back of the bus and stared through the rear glass, even winking at Dante before taking another deep breath. It stopped and focused on Scott, which caused the students to line up behind him and slowly back away until they reached DeAndre. DeAndre looked terrified, confused, and disgusted as the creeper stared at him with disturbing excitement. Then it licked the glass, like it was telling him he was the one it had chosen to eat. The creeper shook the bus violently until the door hinge snapped loose. Scott told Andy to stay by the door and be ready to open it if needed. Andy refused at first, thinking Scott wanted them to go outside while the creeper was still out there. Scott clarified, they'd only open it if the creeper made its way inside. Suddenly, the creeper took off into the air. Maxie collapsed to the floor, her eyes wide and rolling back. She had another vision: farmers in a field, creepy scarecrows, and Derry speaking to her from behind. He told her that every 23 springs, the creeper spends 23 days hunting and feeding on human flesh. Maxie screamed when she turned and saw Derry's face without eyes. Rhonda and Chelsea rushed to her side and asked what she saw. She told them about her vision. Scott tried to interrupt, refusing to believe there was a winged monster trying to eat them, but he was the only one still in denial. The rest believed her. Andy tried calling for help again, now more scared than ever. At the same time, Jack Sr. had been sitting in front of the radio for hours, waiting for any report about the creeper. He and Jack Jr. rushed out the moment they heard reports of abductions in Kessler County. When they reached the county road, they found a car crashed into a tree. It belonged to the couple Coach Charlie had asked for help earlier. As they got closer to the stranded school bus, they picked up Andy's radio call. Andy figured out they weren't police and made them promise to bring the cops to rescue them. Jack Sr., determined to kill the creeper and find his son, even if he feared the worst, ordered Jack Jr. to head straight to the school bus without calling the police. Meanwhile, the high school students cheered, thinking they were finally about to get out of there. At the same time, the creeper's hand burst through the roof of the bus and grabbed Andy by the head. DeAndre, Izzy, and Campbell held on to Andy, trying to keep the creeper from pulling him out, while Rhonda used the spears to stab up through the ceiling into the creeper's head. The creeper let go of Andy and yanked the spear out of its face, tearing half its head apart in the process, then flew back up. The students waited nervously for its next move. Suddenly, they heard a powerful rush of wind slam onto the roof of the bus. It had jumped down from a huge height. The impact shattered all the bus windows. Jake carefully moved toward the middle of the bus to check the creeper's clothes hanging through the broken roof, while Izzy stuck his head up through the opening and saw the creeper lying motionless on top. They didn't know if it was dead or not, but they didn't wait to find out. Campbell tried to open the door so they could run while the creeper seemed unconscious, but it was jammed. They tried the back door, and Scott angrily attempted to break it open. Izzy noticed the hinge pin on the floor and realized what had really happened. The creeper hadn't been trying to break in. It had been making sure they couldn't get out. Suddenly, the roof tore open and the creeper's wings dropped down, forming a barrier that split the students into two groups. Jake, Dante, and Deanne examined the wing while Campbell told them to move to Scott's side. The others tried to force the doors open. Jake carefully pushed the wing aside to let Maxie and a few others pass through, then told Dante to keep pushing it back. Dante kept shoving it, until it suddenly snapped around him. Izzy and Deanne tried to help, but the wing ripped Dante's head clean off, and his headless body collapsed in the middle of the bus. The students screamed in horror, then froze when they heard a disturbing sound coming from the roof. DeAndre dragged Dante's body and grabbed the flare gun from his pocket. Rhonda looked up and saw the creeper devouring its own damaged head, then a new head began regenerating in its place. Scott finally managed to open the door, but instead of telling everyone to get off the bus, he changed his mind and came up with a terrible plan. They were stranded in the middle of nowhere, and no one knew whether help would arrive before the creeper returned. Since it seemed to be choosing specific people, Scott decided they should throw out the ones it had picked instead of offering themselves up as easy targets. The ones it had focused on were Jake, Andy, and DeAndre. Andy and Jake strongly objected. Scott even tried using Maxie's visions to justify his idea, but Jake reminded him that Maxie also said the creeper would disappear for 23 years once sunrise came. DeAndre shoved Scott to the ground, pointing out that they didn't even understand what the creeper's stare meant. They couldn't exile people based on guesses. He added that staying on the bus or getting off didn't change the fact that they were in danger, but running might at least give them a small chance. DeAndre stepped off the bus, and everyone followed except Scott and Johnny. When Scott saw Rhonda leaving too, he tried to stop her, but she was done listening to him after seeing how his fear brought out his selfish side. They argued in the middle of the road when Izzy spotted the creeper circling above. They ran back toward the bus, but Johnny locked the door and refused to let them in. With no other option, they ran toward the nearby farm. The creeper tried to grab DeAndre, but he tripped over a rock and fell, allowing DeAndre to escape. It switched targets and threw a dagger at Scott, pinning his arm to a tree. Izzy, Rhonda, and DeAndre managed to pull the dagger out, but the creeper grabbed Scott and flew off with him. Rhonda broke down crying as she watched her boyfriend get carried away. Meanwhile, Maxie was running alone down the road when Jack Sr. and Jack Jr. arrived. Jack Sr. told her to get in the truck so Jack Jr. could take her to the shack while he stayed behind to fight the creeper. Maxie warned him that the creeper couldn't be stopped or killed, but nothing was going to stop a grieving father determined to avenge his son. Back at the bus, Johnny was hiding inside with Chelsea, whom he had let in earlier. When Andy climbed in through the roof opening, Johnny and Chelsea knew the creeper was right behind him. The creeper grabbed Andy's head, but released him seconds later when it noticed Maxie with the taggets. Jack Sr. attacked the creeper with his spear and struck it. The creeper took off, dragging the truck behind it. Maxie jumped out before the spear swung back toward the vehicle, nearly hitting Jack Jr., who barely had time to react. Jack Jr. drove the truck toward the bus while Jack Sr. prepared a second spear and struck again. This time, the creeper screamed in pain and fell. There was a brief silence. It didn't move. Then suddenly it flew again, and the rope tied to the embedded spear yanked the bus. Jack Jr. drove the truck away, causing the bus to tip onto its side. He warned his father to get out of the truck before the creeper pulled harder and flipped it over. Meanwhile, DeAndre and Rhonda sat on the ground like they'd given up, but Izzy convinced them to keep moving. He told them about a car he had found, and they rushed to it, relieved to find the keys inside. Something flew past them, and they knew it wasn't just a bird. They jumped into the car, and Izzy slammed the gas pedal. The creeper chased them. DeAndre waited until it got close, then fired the flare gun into its face, slowing it down. Izzy suddenly had a crazy idea. He pushed Rhonda out of the car and told DeAndre to jump too, then slammed on the brakes. The creeper flew straight through the vehicle, and the car flipped violently, severely injuring the creature. It lost a wing, an arm, and a leg. DeAndre was hurt too as he crawled away, while the weakened creeper still tried to lunge at him. He managed to hold it off until Jack Sr. appeared and drove another spear straight into its head. Maxie, Andy, Chelsea, Johnny, and Jack Jr. watched as Jack Sr. approached the wounded creeper and stabbed it over and over until it was completely covered in blood and stopped moving. But instead of dying, it entered a state of hibernation. Its time had run out. The creeper locked eyes with Jack Sr., glaring at him as if memorizing his face before its features slowly closed. Jack Sr. pulled the spear from its head and stabbed it again before walking away. 23 years later, 3 young men visited the Taggart farm to see the creeper, which had become a small, unofficial roadside attraction. Jack Jr., now middle-aged, charged them an entrance fee. Inside the barn, the shirtless guy tried to touch the creeper but froze when he heard old Jack Sr. warn them not to. A girl asked Jack Sr. how he killed it, and he showed them the spear he had used 23 years earlier. The visitors noticed the strange behavior of the old man and his son. The shirtless guy asked Jack Sr. if he was waiting for something. Jack Sr. looked up at the creeper and said he was waiting about 3 more days, give or take. It was clear what he meant. The creeper would wake up from its hibernation in 3 days. And that was the end of our movie. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe.